The first recording appeared at 3:07 in the morning. That would have been strange enough by itself, but the phone it came from had not worked in almost 8 years. It was my mother's old phone. No service, no charger, no battery life, no reason to make a sound. And still, when I picked it up from the kitchen counter, the screen was glowing in the dark, and a new voice memo was sitting there with one title: "Listen before he wakes up." I wish I could tell you I deleted it. I wish I could tell you I put the phone in a drawer, drove away from that house, and never looked back. But I didn't. I pressed play, and the first thing I heard was my mother breathing. My name is Ethan Ward, and this happened in a small town called Bell Creek in northern Pennsylvania. It is the kind of town people usually drive through without noticing. One gas station, one grocery store, one diner with cracked red seats and old men who sit near the window every morning. The kind of place where everybody knows your truck before they know your face. I grew up there, in a white 2-story house at the end of Harlan Road. It was never a special house. At least, that is what I used to think. It had a wraparound porch, blue shutters, and a narrow gravel driveway that always flooded when it rained. Behind the house there was a line of pine trees, and beyond that, a stretch of old farmland nobody used anymore. When I was a kid, I thought it was the safest place in the world. My mother made it feel that way. Her name was Claire Ward. She worked at the county library during the day and cleaned offices 3 nights a week. She was quiet, kind, and careful about everything. She checked the stove 3 times before bed. She locked the front door, then touched the knob again just to be sure. She wrote grocery lists on yellow paper and saved every voicemail I ever left her. She used to say voices were important. "Pictures fade," she told me once, "but a voice can bring someone back into the room." Back then, I thought it was just something mothers said. I was 17 when she disappeared. Nobody liked that word, disappeared, but that was the only word that fit. One morning in October, she was gone. Her purse was still on the kitchen chair. Her car was still in the driveway. Her coffee was cold in the mug beside the sink. The back door was open. That was all. The police searched the woods, the fields, and the old creek bed behind the property. Neighbors came with flashlights. Dogs were brought in from the next county. For 3 days, the whole town talked about nothing else. Then the searches became smaller. Then the questions became softer. Then people stopped looking. Some thought she ran away. Some thought she had an accident and the woods took her. Some whispered things I was never supposed to hear. My father had died years earlier, so after my mother vanished, I went to live with my aunt in Scranton. I finished school there, got a job there, and built a life that had nothing to do with Bell Creek. For a long time, I told myself I was fine. Then, when I was 32, Aunt Linda passed away, and I found out the house on Harlan Road was still in my name. I had not stepped inside it in 15 years. The plan was simple. Drive back, clean it out, sell it. That was it. I arrived in Bell Creek on a cold Thursday afternoon in November. The sky was low and gray, and the fields looked dead in that quiet winter way. The town had not changed much. The diner sign was still crooked. The gas station still had the same faded red roof. Even the road to my old house looked the same, narrow and damp, with bare branches hanging over it like black fingers. When I pulled into the driveway, I sat in my truck for almost 10 minutes. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Paint was peeling from the porch rail. Leaves had gathered in the corners. One upstairs window had a crack in it, shaped like a thin white vein. But the strangest thing was the porch light. It was on. I knew the power had been turned off years ago. I had called the utility company 2 days before, and they said they would reconnect it Friday morning. But there it was, glowing weakly above the front door. Not bright. Not warm. Just a dull yellow light, flickering every few seconds. I almost started the truck and left. Instead, I told myself it was probably some old solar bulb or a timer I did not know about. People do that when they are scared. They explain things too quickly. The front door stuck when I pushed it open. The smell hit me first. Dust, old wood, cold air, something sweet and stale under it all, like dried flowers left too long in water. The house was almost exactly as we had left it. The couch was covered with a white sheet. My mother's bookshelf still stood in the living room. A family photo sat face down on the mantel. The kitchen clock had stopped at 3:07. I noticed that right away. 3:07. The same minute I would see again later. I walked through each room with my phone light, making notes on what needed to be thrown out, boxed up, or sold. Most of it was ordinary. Old dishes, blankets, books, Christmas decorations, my childhood baseball glove. Then I opened the top drawer beside the sink. Inside was my mother's old phone. It was a small black flip phone, scratched on the edges, with a tiny silver sticker on the back. I remembered it clearly because she used it for years after everyone else had moved on to smartphones. She said she liked buttons. She said phones were getting too smart. I picked it up and held it in my palm. For a second, I was 17 again, hearing it ring from her purse, watching her smile before answering. The phone was dead, of course. I pressed the power button out of habit, but nothing happened. I almost threw it into the trash bag with the old batteries and broken pens, but I couldn't do it. It felt wrong, so I set it on the kitchen counter and kept cleaning. By 8 o'clock, the house was too cold to stay in without heat. I had brought a sleeping bag and planned to sleep in the living room, but the air inside felt colder than outside. I ended up lighting a small camping lantern and sitting at the kitchen table with my coat still on. The silence was heavy. Old houses make sounds, I know that. Pipes click, floorboards settle, wind gets into corners. But that night, the sounds seemed to stop whenever I listened. A creak above me. I held my breath. Nothing. A soft tap in the wall. I turned my head. Nothing. Around 10, I called my wife, Rachel. She was back in Scranton with our daughter, Mia. I told her the house was a mess but manageable. I told her I would clean for 2 days, meet the realtor, and come home Sunday. She asked if I was okay. I said yes too fast. Before we hung up, she said, "Don't stay there if it feels wrong." I laughed a little. What does wrong feel like? She did not laugh back. You'll know. I slept badly. I dreamed I was standing in the hallway outside my mother's bedroom. The door was shut. Light spilled under it, thin and blue, and from the other side I could hear my mother whispering. Not words, just the shape of words. Like someone talking with their mouth against a wall. Then something whispered my name from behind me. I woke up in the dark. At first, I did not know where I was. Then I saw the kitchen cabinets, the camping lantern, the white sheet over the couch. The house was silent. And then my mother's old phone lit up on the counter. It did not ring. It did not vibrate. The small screen simply glowed pale green. I stared at it from the sleeping bag, my body completely still. Then I heard a click, the sound of recording starting. That little soft beep old phones used to make. I got up slowly and walked to the counter. The phone was open. I had left it closed. On the screen, there was a voice memo. New recording. Duration, 0037. Saved at 3:07 a.m. The title was not typed in any normal way. My mother's phone did not even have that kind of voice memo feature, not that I remembered.
Silver,
But there it was.
come on, boy.
Listen before he wakes up. My hand was shaking when I picked it up. I should have thrown it against the wall. I should have walked out of the house right then. But my mother had been gone for 15 years, and suddenly her phone was holding a piece of sound from the dark. So I pressed play. At first there was only static. Then breathing. Soft, close, tired. Then my mother's voice. Ethan. My knees almost gave out. It was her. Older than I remembered, maybe weaker, but it was my mother. Ethan, if this is recording, then it found its way back. Don't answer the knocking. Don't open the basement door after 3. And if you hear me calling from downstairs. The recording cracked with a burst of static. Then she whispered, so close to the microphone that I heard her lips move. That is not the first me. The memo ended. I stood in the kitchen until the screen went dark. My whole body felt numb. There are moments in life when your mind tries to protect you by refusing to understand what just happened. I looked at the phone. I looked at the dark basement door across the kitchen. I looked at the clock over the stove. 3:07. The same time as the old wall clock. I backed away from the counter and turned on every light I could, even though only 2 lamps worked with the generator I had brought. The basement door was closed. The little brass knob looked darker than everything around it. I did not sleep again. When the sun came up, the house looked almost normal. That made it worse. Daylight can make fear feel embarrassing. By 8 in the morning, I had almost convinced myself the recording was not real. Maybe the phone had some old saved memo. Maybe I had missed it before. Maybe grief had twisted it in my head. So I played it again. My mother's voice filled the kitchen. Don't answer the knocking. Don't open the basement door after 3. I played it 5 times. Each time, I heard something new under the static. A drip of water. A low humming sound. And far behind my mother's whisper, very faint, a second voice. It sounded like me. Not my voice now. My voice as a teenager. It said, "Mom, I'm downstairs." I dropped the phone onto the counter. I had not been downstairs the night she disappeared. At least, not that I remembered. The basement door had always bothered me when I was young. It was too narrow, and the stairs behind it were steep and unfinished. My mother kept laundry down there, old paint cans, boxes of holiday things, and my father's tools. Nothing strange. But after she vanished, the police searched the basement too. They found nothing. That morning, I opened the door and looked down. Cold air breathed up from below. The stairs disappeared into darkness. I turned on my flashlight and went down. The basement smelled like wet concrete and dust. The ceiling was low, with pipes running across it. Boxes were stacked along the walls, most of them soft from age. My mother's old washer and dryer stood in the corner. There was an old workbench against the far wall, still covered with tools and jars of screws. Everything looked ordinary. But ordinary things can become terrifying when you are listening for them to move. I found nothing for the first hour. Then, behind a leaning shelf near the back wall, I noticed scratches on the concrete floor. Long pale marks, like the shelf had been dragged many times. I pulled it aside. Behind it was a small wooden door set into the wall. I do not mean a normal door. It was low, maybe 4 feet tall, painted the same gray as the concrete, with no handle on the outside. Just a small round hole where a handle might have been. I had never seen it before. I stood there, staring at it, trying to remember if it had been there when I was a kid. The answer should have been easy. It was not. I reached into the hole and pulled. The door did not move. Something inside had been locked or blocked. I took a picture and sent it to Rachel. She called me almost immediately. What is that? I don't know. Was it always there? I don't think so. You need to leave. I'm going to call someone. Ethan. The way she said my name made me close my eyes. I'm serious, she said. That house already took your mother from you. Don't let it take you too. I promised her I would not do anything stupid. Then I did something stupid. I went to the Bell Creek Diner to ask questions. The diner had not changed much since I was a kid. Same coffee smell, same old bell over the door, same cracked red seats. An older woman named Marcy was working the counter. She had known my mother. Everyone had known my mother. When she saw me, her face went soft. Ethan Ward, she said. My lord, you look just like your dad. I asked her about the house. not directly at first. I asked about old repairs, old owners, anything unusual. Marcy poured coffee and looked toward the window like she wished I had asked about the weather instead. "That house had a bad feel before your family bought it," she said. "What do you mean?" She wiped the counter with a cloth that was already dry. "People used to call it the listening house." I laughed, but it came out wrong.
Come on, boy.
"Why?" Marcy looked at me then. "Because sound carried strange in there. Folks said you could hear conversations in rooms nobody was in. Your mom hated that name." My mother knew. She knew enough. I asked who lived there before us. Marcy told me about an old man named Walter Bell, one of the last members of the family the town was named after. He had lived alone in that house for decades. He fixed radios, tape recorders, police scanners, answering machines, anything that could capture a voice. People brought him broken things. He gave them back repaired. Sometimes he kept copies. That was the rumor. Marcy said people stopped going to him after a while because he would mention things he should not have known. Private things. Things spoken in kitchens and bedrooms. Things said into phones that were never mailed, never recorded, never shared. He died in the house before my parents bought it. "Died where?" I asked. Marcy did not answer right away. Then she said, "Basement." I felt the coffee cup warm between my hands. Was there a small door down there? Marcy's face changed. "Not much. Just enough. You found it." I did not speak. She leaned closer. "Your mother came here a week before she disappeared. She sat right where you're sitting. She looked like she hadn't slept. She asked me if Walter Bell had a son." "Did he?" "No, not that anyone knew." "Why did she ask?" Marcy looked around the diner, then lowered her voice. "She said someone in the house was calling you from behind the basement wall." I left without finishing my coffee. On the drive back, the sky turned darker even though it was only afternoon. Clouds pressed low over the fields. The trees along Harlan Road bent in the wind. When I reached the house, the porch light was on again. The power company had not come yet. This time, I did not try to explain it. Inside, the kitchen felt colder than before. The phone was sitting on the counter where I left it. "Open." The screen showed one new recording. Saved at 12:16 p.m. I had been at the diner at 12:16. The title said, "He knows you came back." I played it. Static hissed. Then came the sound of footsteps moving slowly across wood. Not near the microphone. Above it. Then a door creaked. Then my mother's voice, barely more than breath. "Ethan, I don't have much time. He learned voices by keeping them. He keeps them in the walls. He can sound like anyone if he hears them long enough." Something thudded in the recording. My mother gasped. Then she whispered, "I didn't leave you. I locked the wrong door." The static rose. Behind it, I heard another voice. My voice. Again, young. "Mom, please. It's cold down here." My mother started crying. "No," she whispered. "You are upstairs. My boy is upstairs." Then a third voice spoke. It sounded like my mother too. But not exactly. It was flatter, empty, like someone reading words without knowing what they meant. "Claire, open the door." The recording ended. I stood there with the phone pressed against my ear, even after it went silent. The house creaked around me. Then, from below the kitchen floor, came a soft knock. One time. I did not move. Another knock. Then 3 more, slow and patient. It was coming from the basement. I grabbed my keys and walked out of the house. I made it halfway to my truck before I heard my mother call from inside. "Ethan." Not from a recording. Not from the phone. From the kitchen. I stopped on the porch. Every part of me wanted to turn around. That is the terrible thing about a voice you love. Even when you know it is wrong, it reaches a place in you that never learned how to be careful. "Ethan," she called again. It sounded just like her. Warm, sad, close. I'm sorry, honey. I ran to the truck. I drove back into town and parked outside the motel instead of going home. Bell Creek only had one motel, a low brick building near the highway with 8 rooms and a broken ice machine. I got a room from a man who did not look up from his television. I sat on the edge of the bed until dark. I told myself I was done. I would call a contractor in the morning. I would call the police if I had to. I would never set foot in that basement again. Then at 3:07 a.m., my backpack started glowing. The phone was inside. I had not brought it. I know how that sounds. I know it makes no sense. But I had left that phone on the kitchen counter. I remembered seeing it there before I ran out. I had not picked it up. I had not put it in my coat. Still, there it was, inside the front pocket of my backpack, open and recording. The motel room was silent, except for the heater clicking by the window. I watched the timer count upward. 00:08, 00:09, 00:10. Then a sound came from the phone's speaker while it was still recording. A whisper. Ethan. I froze. The screen showed a live recording, but somehow I could hear what it was capturing. My mother's voice whispered again. Don't trust the motel mirror. I looked up. Across from the bed, above the dresser, there was a rectangular mirror. The room behind me looked normal in the glass. Bed, lamp, door, my own pale face. Then the bathroom door in the reflection opened. Only in the reflection. In the real room, the bathroom door was closed. In the mirror, it opened slowly, and a dark shape stood behind it. I turned around so fast, I nearly fell. The bathroom door was still shut. When I looked back at the mirror, the shape was gone. The phone beeped. Recording saved. The title appeared by itself. He saw you look. I did not stay in that motel room another minute. I drove until sunrise. I should have kept driving all the way back to Scranton, but something had changed in me. Fear was still there, but under it was anger. My mother had been trapped inside a mystery for 15 years, and everyone had let it become a sad town story. I could not leave her there again. At 9 in the morning, I called Rachel and told her everything. Not all at once. I tried to sound calm. I tried to make it believable. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "Do not go back alone. I have to know what's behind that door." "No, you don't have to. You want to." She was right. But wanting can feel like needing when the past has been waiting for you. I called a locksmith from the next town. His name was Pete, and he was the kind of man who talked too much when he was uncomfortable. I told him there was an old locked storage space in the basement. I did not mention the recordings. He met me at the house around noon. The porch light was off. That almost scared me more. Pete joked about old houses and hidden rooms while we carried his tools inside. He stopped joking when we got to the basement. "Cold down here," he said. I nodded. He looked at the small door behind the shelf. "Well," he said, "that's not a storage closet." "What is it?" He ran his hand along the frame. "Old coal chute maybe, or a crawl space, but somebody sealed this from inside." "Can you open it?" He looked at me. "Probably, but I'm asking first. You sure you want me to?" I said yes. It took him 20 minutes. The whole time he worked, the house above us made small sounds. A step in the kitchen. A board creaking in the hall. Once, very clearly, the sound of a chair dragging across the floor upstairs. Pete stopped and looked at the ceiling. "Someone else here?" "No." He did not like that answer. When the old lock finally snapped, the small door opened inward an inch. Cold air came through the crack. It smelled like dust, metal, and something old that had been closed away too long. Pete shined his flashlight inside. Then he whispered, "What the hell?" Behind the door was not a crawl space. It was a narrow room, longer than it should have been. The walls were covered with shelves. On the shelves were cassette tapes, answering machines, small recorders, broken phones, radios, and boxes of labeled wires. Hundreds of them, maybe more. A wooden chair sat in the middle of the room. Above it hung an old microphone on a cord. The walls had been lined with dark foam, like a recording booth. Pete took one step back. I don't want any part of this. I could not blame him. He left so fast, he forgot one of his tools. I stood alone in the basement, looking into the hidden room. There were labels on the tapes. Not names exactly. Rooms. Kitchen, March 12. Bedroom, July 8. Porch raining. Boy crying. Woman praying. One label made my heart stop. Claire Ward, final night. The tape was sitting on the shelf closest to the chair. I picked it up with shaking hands. There was an old cassette player on the desk beside the wall. It was dusty, but intact. I plugged it into the generator extension cord, half expecting nothing to happen. The red power light blinked on. I put the tape in. For a moment, there was only a low hiss. Then I heard my mother. She was in the kitchen. I could tell by the sound of the old refrigerator humming behind her. She was speaking into her phone. If anyone finds this, my name is Claire Ward. There is something in this house that uses voices. I thought Walter Bell made recordings because he was lonely. I was wrong. I think he was feeding it. Her voice broke. I hear Ethan when Ethan isn't home. I hear my husband, and he's been dead 9 years. I hear myself from rooms I'm not in. It asks to be let out. It says it can only open a door if someone answers. A loud knock sounded on the tape. My mother stopped breathing. Then my voice, 17 years old, called from far away. Mom. She whispered, Ethan is asleep upstairs. Again, my voice called. Mom, I found something. Come down. I remembered sleeping that night. I remembered waking up to police in the house. But as I listened, another memory moved under those memories, like something turning over in dark water. I remembered hearing my mother crying downstairs. I remembered standing at the top of the basement steps. I remembered her looking up at me with one finger to her lips. And behind her, from the basement wall, another me whispered, please. On the tape, my mother said, I know what you are. Then came a sound like many voices talking at once. Not loud. Not screaming. Just whispering over each other. Hundreds of whispers layered together. My father. Neighbors. Marcy from the diner. Me as a child. My mother. All of them saying different things. The tape crackled. Then my mother screamed, not in pain but in fear. Ethan, go upstairs, lock your door. A door slammed. A heavy scrape followed. Then my mother spoke very close to the microphone. I locked it in. I locked myself in with it. If this house ever starts recording again, don't listen after 3. It learns faster after 3. The tape clicked. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Then a voice spoke from the tape. It was not my mother. It was old,
Silver.
dry and calm.
Come on, boy.
Thank you, Claire. The cassette stopped. The basement went silent. I was crying by then. I had not cried for my mother in years, not really. Grief had become a sealed room in me, and now that room had been opened. She had not left. She had protected me. That should have been the end of it. But the phone on the workbench lit up. I had not taken it out. It was just there, open screen glowing. A new recording was already saved. 3:07 p.m. Not a.m. p.m. The title said, Now it has your voice. My mouth went dry. I picked up the phone. The recording began with the sound of me crying in the basement. Then my own voice said very softly, Rachel. I had never said her name out loud down there. The recording continued. My voice again, but not from me. Mia, come here, sweetheart. I nearly dropped the phone. My daughter was 6 years old. She was home in Scranton. She had never been inside that house. The thing had heard her through my calls, through my memories, through me. From behind the hidden room wall came a soft click, like a recorder turning on. Then a knock. One time. I backed toward the stairs. Another knock. Then my mother's voice came from inside the hidden room. "Ethan, don't run." I ran. I grabbed the phone, the tape, and my keys, and I ran out of that house without turning off the generator. I drove straight to the police station in Bell Creek. The officer at the desk was young, maybe 25. He listened to the first recording with a polite look that slowly became something else. Then he called the sheriff. Sheriff Nolan had been a deputy when my mother disappeared. He was older now, heavier, with tired eyes and a gray mustache. He remembered me. He remembered my mother. At first, he did not believe me. Then I played the tape labeled Claire Ward, Final Night. He did not speak for a long time. Finally, he said, "Your mother told us about sounds in the wall." I looked at him. "She reported it 3 times, he said. "We thought she was under stress." "You never told me. You were a kid." He looked ashamed when he said it. They sent 2 officers to the house that evening. I waited at the station with a cup of bad coffee and my mother's phone on the table in front of me. At 6:42 p.m., the officers radioed back. They had found the hidden room. They had found the tapes. They had found the chair. But they did not find any sign of my mother. Then the radio crackled. One officer said, "Sheriff, you need to hear this." In the background, through the radio static, someone was calling my name. Not one voice. Many voices. All of them mine. The sheriff grabbed the radio. "Get out of the house." No answer. "Davis, get out now." There was a loud bang. Then the radio went dead. Both officers came out alive, but neither wanted to talk about what they had heard. One of them quit 2 weeks later. The other transferred before Christmas. The county sealed the house for an investigation. That lasted 3 days. Then a man from the state came. Then another man. Then people in black jackets with no names on them. I was told the property had unsafe structural conditions. I was told not to return. I was told the recordings were evidence and could not be released. But they did not take my mother's phone. Maybe they missed it. Maybe it did not want to be found by them. I brought it home. I know that was a mistake. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. Rachel wanted me to destroy it. She begged me. She said some doors stay closed for a reason. I kept telling her I just needed one more answer. That is how these things keep you. They never give enough. They give one piece at a time, and every piece makes you reach for the next. The last recording came on a Sunday night. Mia was asleep. Rachel had gone to bed. I was sitting alone in the living room, staring at my mother's phone on the coffee table. At exactly 3:07 a.m., the screen lit up. This time, the title was different. It said, "Final Voice Note." I did not press play right away. I stared at those words until my eyes burned. Then I picked up the phone and listened. For the first 10 seconds, there was only silence. Then my mother's voice came through. But it was clearer than before. Almost warm. "Ethan," she said, "my sweet boy, if this is the last one, then it means you brought it out." I stopped breathing. "I am sorry," she continued. "I tried to keep it in the house. I thought if I stayed quiet long enough, it would forget your voice. But things like this don't forget. They wait for someone who needs to hear the dead." A soft sound came through the recording, like wind under a door. My mother whispered, "It cannot take a person unless they answer. That is the rule. Walter learned it too late. I learned it the night it called with your voice." I looked toward the hallway. Everything was dark. The recording went on. "It will not start with me now. It knows you expect me. It will use someone closer." My blood turned cold. From down the hallway, Mia's bedroom door creaked open. I lowered the phone. A small voice called out in the dark. "Daddy." I stood up. The voice came again. "Daddy, I had a bad dream." It sounded exactly like my daughter. Exactly. But Mia's door was still closed. The voice was coming from the basement door. We did not have a basement door in our Scranton house. At least, we did not before that night. At the end of the hallway, where there had always been a linen closet, there was now a narrow wooden door. Old. Gray. With no handle. The phone pressed warm against my hand. My mother whispered from the speaker, "Do not answer." The small voice behind the door sniffled. "Daddy, please." I bit down on my tongue to stop myself from speaking. Rachel stepped into the hallway behind me, pale and shaking. She saw the door. She heard the voice. Her eyes filled with tears, because that is what a parent's heart does when it hears a child scared in the dark. I grabbed her hand before she could move. From upstairs, the real Mia cried out in her sleep. Rachel covered her mouth. The thing behind the door stopped pretending to cry. For a few seconds, the house was silent. Then, from behind that impossible door, my own voice spoke. Not teenage me. Not child me. Me now. Calm and close. "Rachel, open it, I'm in here." Rachel squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. The phone recording continued, and my mother said one final thing. "If you hear yourself, it already has enough." The voice note ended. The door at the end of the hallway gave one soft knock. Then it vanished. Not opened. Not closed. Just vanished. The linen closet was there again, white and ordinary, with folded towels inside. We left the house before sunrise. We stayed with Rachel's sister for a month. I changed my number. We threw away every old recorder, every baby monitor, every broken phone, every device in the house that could capture sound. But I could not destroy my mother's phone. I tried. I put it in a sink full of water. The next morning, it was dry on the kitchen table. I buried it in a shoebox behind my brother-in-law's garage. That night, it was under my pillow. So now I keep it locked in a small metal safe in a storage unit 20 miles away. No one goes there after dark. No one speaks near it. Once a month, I drive there in the morning and check the safe. Most of the time, it is silent. But last week, there was a new scratch on the metal. From the inside. And yesterday, my daughter asked me something that made me feel like the world had gone quiet around me. She was sitting at the kitchen table, drawing with crayons. She looked up and said, "Dad, why does Grandma call me from the closet?" I asked her what she meant. She said, "Not every night, just when the little phone glows." I have not slept since. The old phone is still locked away. At least, that is what I told myself this morning. But before I started recording this story, I heard something inside my desk drawer.
Come on, boy.
A soft click. A tiny beep. The sound of an old phone starting a voice memo. And when I opened the drawer, the screen was glowing. There was one new recording. Saved at 3:07 a.m. The title said, "He Sounds Like You Now." I have not played it yet. I am afraid that if I do, I will hear my own voice asking to be let in. And I am more afraid that I will answer. So tell me honestly, if you found one last voice note from someone you loved, and you knew it might not really be them, would you press play?